Evening, everybody. It is 6:01 p.m. on January 19th, 2023. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Somerville Planning Board. I'm Mike Capuano. I'm the chairman of the planning board. With me tonight is the vice chair, Amelia Aboff, the clerk, Erin Gino, and Debbie Howard Easton. We have a number of items on our agenda tonight. On them are included 59 Bow Street, which has previously been opened but has been continued a number of times. 200 McGrath Highway, which I believe needs to be opened. And we have an item of other business, which are the rules of policies and procedures of the planning board. So pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Act of 2022, this meeting of the Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation. A recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of the agenda. This meeting is being recorded. So the Planning Board actually, before I get into any official business, the Planning Board has some new members who need to formally be part of the planning board. They will start on February 2 for that meeting. I believe one of our new members is present this evening, Michael McNeely. I just want to make reference to his presence. We will also have another gentleman named Luke Schuster who will be joining us as well. So I just want to recognize his presence here tonight as an observer, and will be a full member of the planning board in our next meeting in February. So I just want to say hello to them, and on Feb 2 I will have them introduce themselves. So we have on our agenda 200 McGrath Highway, and it is my understanding the applicant is going to be requesting a continuance. But before we start, I think we need to read into the record the notice of public hearing for 200 before we move to continue. So if I could ask the clerk of the planning board to please read into the record the notice of public hearing for that particular application.
Sure. Reading into the record, 200 McGrath Highway, PNZ 22-097. US McGrath Owner LLC proposes a master plan in the Union Square East sub area of the Master Plan Development Overlay District, which requires a master plan special permit. The proposal is for an approximately 3-acre site and includes 2 buildings, totaling approximately 980,000 square feet and 3 thoroughfares.
Both the applicant and I believe that council are present. So if somebody from the applicant would like to be unmuted just to be able to address the planning board for the purpose of the continuance, I would appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, this is Charlotte speaking. Raisa, are you able to promote them or should I?
This is Raisa speaking.
I can unmute them. I am unmuting Greg Karcheski and Justin Kunz of the applicant team, and I am also available if the board has any questions. Greg and Justin, you should both be able to speak now.
And Greg, I'm going to ask for you, just because you've been promoted to a presenter, I'm just going to ask you to hold off for a brief moment. I don't know if Charlotte wants to make a brief presentation on anything prior to you requesting the continuance, but I just want to give staff the opportunity to address it because there were a couple of hiccups prior to the meeting, so I just want to make sure we're all clear.
Yeah, I'm happy to give a brief summary of what was in the staff memo. As noted in the staff memo earlier this month, Inspectional Services determined that the lotting plan proposed as part of this master plan has some compliance challenges. So in response to that, the applicant continued at the January 5th meeting, and the applicant and ISD are working to kind of figure out what the best path forward is. We don't have an answer to that yet. There are a couple of possible paths that I summarized in the staff memo. I won't go over that here, but I have been in close contact with the applicant, and they're here in case you have questions, but really tonight is just going to be a continuance so that they have time to work with ISD to get more solid information.
Charlotte, thank you very much. Greg, if you have anything additional that you'd like to add to what Charlotte said, or if you have anything else that you'd like to address the planning board with, you are more than welcome to this evening before we move to continue.
Chair Capuano and Charlotte, thanks for the update, and members of the planning board. This is Greg Karcheski. Appreciate the opportunity to be before you tonight. We're anxious to present the project to you. As Charlotte mentioned, there's some a technical matter related to the proposed platting of the master plan that we're hoping to meet with ISD and kind of work through, and then be back before you shortly. So appreciate your consideration of a continuance tonight, and hopefully at the next meeting we'll be able to talk about the project in detail. We're very excited about it, but thank you.
Sure, no problem at all. Thank you very much for your brief address. I'm just checking my calendar to make sure what the next appropriate meeting to continue you to is. How many prepositions can I have? So it's not going to be the 2nd. I believe it's going to be the meeting of the 16th. Is that right, Charlotte?
Mr. Chair, this is Charlotte speaking. It is unlikely that we will have a substantive update ready to share with the board in writing. We may have a verbal update, but I can't guarantee that by the February 2nd meeting. It is the discretion of the chair whether you continue it to the 2nd or the 16th. But if it is continued to the 2nd, staff will not have time to write a staff memo by that meeting.
Thank you very much. I think it makes sense then to continue this matter to the meeting on the 16th of February of 2023. So that is the motion that I'm making, seconded by Amelia. A roll call vote. The chair votes aye.
Amelia votes aye.
Aaron votes aye.
Debbie votes aye.
Thank you all very much for showing up tonight for a brief moment. You are continued to the 16th of February. We'll hopefully see you then.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Next item on our agenda is a previously opened and repeatedly continued application on 59 Bow Street. So I would like applicant and their counsel to be unmuted, please, and be promoted to whatever they need to be promoted to present to the planning board.
Mr. Chairman, this is Sarah White speaking. I'm sorry, you faded out a little bit there. Were you asking for the applicants to be promoted or unmuted? Okay.
Yes.
Very good. I'll unmute Ann Vigorito, who's the attorney for the applicant, and then I will also unmute Phil Seema, and I believe Elon Sassoon is here as well.
Yes, thank you, Ms. White. Thank you, Chairman Capuano, members of the planning board. Attorney Ann Vigorito from 424 Broadway, Somerville. Tonight, our team consists of the 5961 Bow Street LLC, Elon Sassoon, its manager is present, and then Phil Seema from Balance Architects. I will give a brief overview, and then Phil Seema will review the plans with the board. So this is an MR5 zoning district in the Union Square area. At present time, it's a 3-family dwelling. The proposal is for a 5-story net zero ready LEED Platinum certified general building. And there'll be 15 residential dwelling units, 14 1-bed units, and then 1 2-bedroom unit. There'll be a commercial space on the ground floor. Most likely this will be a restaurant This isn't a quarter mile of a transit walkshed, so no parking is required, nor is any being provided for the residential or commercial use. We did have 2 neighborhood meetings for this project. The first was in July 29th of 2021, and then the second was October 12th of 2021. At that second meeting, some parking concerns were raised by the Bow Street Place neighbors. And at that time, and this continues, the team did note that we would be willing to voluntarily place deed restrictions that would restrict any tenants and or owners from parking on Bow Street Place. This specific restriction has actually been placed on the special permit as a condition of approval for this project. Also, on September 14th, back in 2021, we were at the UDC where the design presented this evening was the UDC's preferred design, as well as the landscape site layout, the masking mechanical equipment, as well as addressing the mobility division's concerns. So at this time, I would ask that Phil Seema be allowed to review the plans with you. I will mute myself, and then at the end of the presentation, of course, any questions we will be ready to answer. Thank you.
This is Rice speaking. Phil, I believe you are not a presenter yet. Let me make you a presenter.
Thanks so much. And also, Andrea should probably speak at some point. Are folks seeing my screen? Is it the title page or the zoning chart?
It looks like an Excel spreadsheet with me just scaring me.
Huh?
Yeah,
All right, let me switch it. How does this look? Does that look a little better?
Much better to me.
All right, no spreadsheets. Well, thanks everyone. I'm Phil Seema from Balance Architects. Like Ann said, we're working on 59 Bow Street. So I will go through the presentation to give you an extent of the context. So this is the current property. We're right on the corner of Bow Street Place and Bow Street, really in the heart of Union Square. And you can see from these Google Earth axons, basically the relationship. So right next to Stanhope Framers, which is a single-story building, and then there's some larger buildings down the street, across the street, but really a general mix of building types. And then a large, I believe it's Eversource substation right behind the property. Here are some views along the street looking towards, so we're the building or the home that's yellow with the gable roof. That's where we're proposing this project. You can see down Bow Street Place is over here as well. As Ann mentioned, MR5 within the half-mile transit zone, and then we're right on a pedestrian street. So the side that faces Bow Street will be that cafe or restaurant area that Ann mentioned. So the general massing of the building, you're looking along the side of Bow Street, the shorter edge here, and Bow Street Place is the longer edge. We have a mix of balconies, bays, and then the step back at the top floor, you can see. This is it for the front. And then we're going zero lot line along the side yard. So it's a blank facade because we can't create fenestration there, but we play a lot with materials, corbelling to really kind of make that visually interesting for the neighborhood. And you can see coming down from Bow Street Place, again, the bays, balconies, and then entry on the ground floor there. This is a straight on view of that. So this is, people don't like this page, but we're trying to be zoning compliant for everything dimensionally. And then for the use of residential, we'd be seeking some I believe it's a variance, not a variance, but we have residential and commercial use. But everything else dimensionally should be compliant. In terms of site strategy, this is the existing building. It has a garage on the back. There's a small easement for the other building here to get access to Bow Street Place. And then you can see the front stoop steps come down onto Bow Street. So our new proposed plan, we're showing, of course, the 12-foot wide sidewalks. We have our commercial space fronting Bow Street. It wraps the corner. We have an area for trash and recycling within the building with an area designated for the restaurant use, as well as an area specific for the residents above. the entrance to the building with an elevator, and then 2 units on that ground floor with small kind of garden areas out to the side. And then again, full 12-foot sidewalks on Bow Street Place as well, and removing the parking that was basically kind of over the property that's currently there. And then at one point, the neighbors had asked us to kind of do an overlay. So that's an overlay of the existing building footprint with ours in yellow. And was Andrea unmuted to be able to present or talk?
This is Raisa speaking. Andrea, I see Andrea's hand raised. Andrea Fossa, you have been muted, self-muted. I think you're self-muted on your end. Hello? Do you hear us, Andrea?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Andrea Fossa. I'm a landscape architect with Michael D'Angelo Landscape Architecture. So as Philip already explained, we have 12-foot wide concrete path per City of Somerville request and standards on both Bow Street and Bow Street Place. Along Bow Street Place, we're providing 3 bike racks that are the loop standard bike racks. And then within the property line, to comply with green score, we have permeable unit paving along the building frontage. To also provide some green along the building facade, we have movable 30-inch height aluminum planters with a mix of ornamental grasses and perennials. Along the back at the easement line, we have turf planting. Next page. And then on the roof terraces, again, to comply with the green score, we have a mix of green roof planting and patio wood decking private terraces with a 4-foot height fence at each of the private terraces. And then on the 5th floor roof, we have a additional green roof planting, and that's 4-inch thick. And then just precedent images of different types of green roofs, the wood decking at the private terraces, some permeable unit pavers, and a mix of plantings that would be used for the planters.
Okay, thanks so much, Andrea. So I'll talk about the building strategy now. So as Ann mentioned, we are going for the net zero ready unit density bonus. So we're working with Linnaean Solutions, who we've worked with, I think, on 4 projects in Somerville where we're going for the same certification. So we'll be doing it via the passive house route. So in terms of plan, this is the basement plan. It's primarily slab on grade for the first floor, but we do have some dedicated areas for long-term bike parking. Those bikes are accessed via elevator, as well as the utilities for the building. But primarily, because we're so close to the lot line, we have this on slab on grade for the first floor for the majority. Again, you can see that first floor floor plan that we talked about, the commercial area, the egress for the residential, the trash and recycling areas, as well as the studio units 1 and 2 on the ground floor with access to that small side yard. As we get into the typical floor plans above, we have our central core for our elevator and stairs, and then some very compact 1-bedrooms, but each unit has a balcony and outdoor amenity space. You can see on the 3rd and 4th floors, very similar layout, 4 units per floor. And then when we get up to the top floor, we have a really kind of spectacular unit that spans along this whole green roof area at that top. And then a schematic kind of mix of the program so that you can see it in section of residential and commercial spaces. In terms of the elevations, large glazing at the storefront for the commercial space above, the bays with a different material than the rest of the facade with the balconies. Above, we're proposing corbelling, and we have renderings where you'll see this, but kind of very distinct at the windows along here, creating vertical bands a material transition at the top to kind of, really give the building a feeling of a base and a middle and a top, with each one having kind of its own distinct elements. You can kind of clearly see this along the side on Bow Street Place, where you have the entry to the residential units along here, and a similar pattern of bays, fenestration, and balconies. And then for the side that faces the side yard at the 0-foot lot line, we have a mix of corbelling bricks and a change in the orientation of how we're stacking them. So we'd be doing this as a soldier course relating to the bays on the other side of the building. And you can kind of see the axons for it and how that would look. So again, this kind of really special green roof moment for the unit above. And then we do need to hit the green score. So we do have a large portion on that upper roof that would be a green roof as well. So we were really influenced by a lot of the beautiful buildings in the neighborhood that we see. This is the old police station. It's got some wonderful examples of corbelling and brick and masonry, as well as just down the street on Summer Street. There's kind of these type of buildings almost everywhere. So that influenced our choice of materials and the style that we're approaching with it. So the kind of the base feel of the building is a kind of, I'll show you the exact brick that we're thinking about, but it's a brick building with the bays clad more in kind of a traditional clapboard siding, corbelling to create the vertical bands, and again, more of like a fiber cement cladding at the top, but in a vertical orientation, and large storefront windows for that commercial space. Looking at it from Bow Street Place, again, similar mix of materials. And then this is just rendered from Bow Street Place. Sorry, I don't know if I said Bow Street for the last slide or not. But again, seeing that residential entry and then kind of disguising the kind of where the trash and recycling would come out, and then the windows for the units. Again, a rendering with a little bit more view down the street, and a rendering from what you'd see basically across the street, looking at Stanhope, and again, kind of linking some of the materials that we see there. So this is what we were thinking for the general color scheme and materials. We love these iron spot bricks, which have a natural kind of variation in texture, along with just kind of simple muted charcoal, clapboard siding, and black windows, black storefront, simple aluminum channel letters. So that's our primary design strategy. One of the ones that we presented to the neighborhood, and we had another design strategy that there was some interest from some of the neighbors on. This was much more of kind of a traditional wood-clad feeling building that we looked at, basically angling the bays. The bays are kind of clad in trim, with the base of the building being a white clapboard, kind of more of a traditional storefront, not so much open as a kind of metal storefront system, but large storefront windows. And again, that clapboard coming around the sides as well. You can kind of see that from Bow Street. So again, some of the bays that you might see in a triple decker in the neighborhood, and a little bit more traditional kind of railing styles, and a cornice above from Bow Street Place as well. And then again, that same angle of what that could potentially look like from the sidewalk. And I'll briefly just go over these. These are a couple more kind of contemporary versions that we share with the neighborhood that we started out with, that we obviously don't like as much as the first one, but this kind of is more like a light colored bay. So with that, I'll end on our favorite rendering and open it up to any conversations, questions, comments.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I will have some comments and some questions in a few moments, but I do want to recognize that Councilor Jake Wilson is in the audience, and I don't know if the councilor intends to or has any desire to address the planning board tonight in his capacity as the councilor, based on any feelings that he may have, or based on any neighborhood meetings that he may have organized or attended. So I would welcome the councilor's input at this time if Councilor Wilson wants to make one.
This is Rice speaking. Councilor Wilson, you are unmuted. You may be self-muted on your end.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Oh, yeah, thank you so much, Chair. I appreciate that. I'm honestly just here to take it all in. I found myself with a rare night off from city council meetings, so I just wanted to, come by and show some interest in what y'all were doing here. So that's all I've got to say.
Wonderful. I have a feeling you and I may have a very long meeting in a couple of weeks, but we'll leave it for that.
All right. Excellent. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
I will have some comments and some questions at some point during the course of this evening, but I'm going to wait until after we open it up to public testimony, but I don't know if my colleagues have any comments or questions at this time of either the applicant or of staff. Okay. Seeing none at this time, what I'd like to do is open up this meeting for this hearing rather for public testimony. I would like to invite anybody that wants to speak in support of this application. Please exercise the raised hand button. I will recognize you in the order in which I see you. Because there aren't so many folks on the line, I'm not going to limit anybody in time, but I will ask you to respect everybody's evening. Going once, going twice. Oh, you know what? I see two different versions of Seth Hurwitz. But if we could please unmute the version of Seth Hurwitz with his hand raised, I will recognize Mr. Hurwitz.
This is Rice speaking. Seth, you have been unmuted. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Seth Hurwitz, and I live at 12 Maple Avenue. Sorry about having two versions of myself in there. My computer died while I was watching the presentation. Just rebooted it and had to log back in, so now there are two of me, I suppose. In any case, I just want to say thank you for this presentation and thank you for hosting the meeting this evening. This looks like an incredible project, and I would be so thrilled to see more designs such as this proposed throughout our neighborhoods. It seems to hit on everything that I know that I would want to see in a building right next to the place where I live, in my neighborhood, which is something that will provide commercial opportunities for small businesses, something that will offer many more units of housing and help address the tremendous housing shortage in our community and also just in the region. And I also really appreciate the attention to detail that the developers have to this project and trying to be in keeping with materials that are found throughout the neighborhood. I don't think that should necessarily be a requirement for a development, but I appreciate that they recognize that that was a concern of abutters, that they wanted to meet that concern. I really can't say enough good things about this proposal. I wholeheartedly support it, and I hope to see this built in the next several years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurwitz. The next hand that I see raised is from Aaron Weber, so I'd like to have Mr. Weber be unmuted, please.
This is Rice speaking. Aaron, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Aaron Weber. I live at 32 Summit Avenue, not too far away from this project. I'll keep this very short. Thank you so much for your presentation. The Summer Vision 2040 plan envisions an increase in the total number of homes in Somerville and a decrease in per capita carbon emissions and a decrease in vehicle miles traveled per person. This proposal matches all three of those goals and is therefore fully in line with the comprehensive plan for our city and I hope that you will approve it promptly. The housing crisis deserves to be treated with a sense of urgency. Thank you very much for your time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weber. For anybody else who's raising their hand to speak in support of the application, going once, going twice, seeing none, I will close that portion of the, I do see Kim Schmannen's hand raised. So before I close that portion of the public hearing, I would like to have Kim Schmannen be unmuted and be recognized.
This is Rice speaking. Kim, you have been unmuted. You are self-muted on your end.
You can't hear me.
Yes, faintly.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'm actually from 1 Fitchburg Street, and I came to the meeting for 200 McGrath Highway, but I stayed on as I have the night free now. And I must say, as an architect, I'm blown away by this application. I think that the architects have done an incredible job. I think it will be a positive contribution to Somerville. You have to take my comments lightly because I live far away from where this is. So the neighbors adjoining will have more weight than me. But I just think it's an incredible application, and I ditto the previous 2 speakers who have said that this building meets the summer vision goals wholeheartedly. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to leave it open for anybody else that wants to speak in support of the application. Please raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Seeing none, I will close that portion of the public hearing and open it up to anybody that wants to speak in opposition of the application or otherwise express concern. I see Phil Cavallini's hand raised, so Mr. Cavallini, please be unmuted.
This is Rice speaking. Bill, you have been unmuted.
Yes, my name is Bill Cavallini. I live at 33 Oak Street in Somerville on the other side of Union Square. I am also a member of the Union Square Neighborhood Council. However, I am not speaking for the council tonight. I am speaking to express my concerns about this development because I have been party to 2 meetings with Bow Street Place neighbors. They were not aware of this meeting tonight. Most of them are very unfamiliar with the way the planning board works. And I wasn't aware that this meeting was going to happen tonight around Bow Street. I happened to be on board because of the 200 McGrath that was on your agenda. But I want to communicate what the concerns that I heard from the neighbors as they were talking to the neighborhood council for the last 3 months about 55 Bow Street, which is another property owned by Elan Sassoon, Stanhope Framers property.
I don't know that property.
In the course of that, those meetings, they talked about the concerns that they had expressed at the 2 previous neighborhood meetings about 55 Bow Street. The major concern was parking, and the staff report reflects that. And the staff report, I believe, recommends tonight that the condition be placed, I believe, on the special permit that deed restriction be placed on the building so that parking is not allowed on Bow Street Place by the residents of this building. So I would support that recommendation by the staff. And I believe that the board, the Union Square Neighborhood Council would support that if they were, if it was brought before them. The second concern was that they had asked for the owner and developer to be responsible for some of the snow plowing on Bow Street Place. They have not gotten a commitment to that. I'm not sure that's an appropriate condition that can be placed on a special permit, but I wanted to communicate that as well. The last thing I want to mention is that I'm not so sure I'm in agreement with Aaron Weber and previous speakers who supported this project in their statement that this is consistent with the neighborhood plan or Summer Vision 2030 or 2040. And the reason I state that is that there's one unit in this building out of 15 that has more than one bedroom. Is that really consistent with the goals for affordable housing and just generally housing in Somerville today? And that's just a question for the board to consider. This issue will come up again if and when a proposal for 55 Bow Street comes before the board. In order for housing to be on that site, it's currently zoned fabrication, so it's going to need more than just the kind of approval that you're looking at tonight. It's probably going to have to go to the city council for a zoning change or a map change. So again, I hope you take my my concerns and that you approve a condition about parking. And thank you for your patience in listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
This is Raisa speaking. Mr. Chair, you may be having some audio issues. Is everyone else hearing that too?
I don't have an audio issue on my end. What's the issue that you are hearing, Raisa?
You were just cutting off here and there. Please continue.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the recording is not corrupted during the course of the meeting, but I haven't heard any interruptions in my audio on my end. Has anybody else on the board? Okay. So I would like to, this is still open for anybody that wants to speak in opposition or express concern to the application. It's still the time of the hearing where we're taking public testimony. I'd like anybody else that wants to speak in opposition to please raise their hand and I will recognize you. Going once, going twice. Seeing no further hands raised, I'm going to close that portion of the public hearing. It is not my intention to hold a vote on this application this evening. It's my intention to keep written comment open through at least our next meeting. As we've heard through public testimony, there may be some additional residents in the area that want to have their voices heard. And it's the regular practice of the planning board to keep written comment open after an application like this. But I do have some comments, both of the applicant and to staff, both on the nature of the application and on the language that I've seen in the staff memorandum and the proposed conditions. But before I do that, I would like to recognize any other members of the planning board that would like to speak on this application, and I'm happy to recognize you and we can have a discussion. Yes, Amelia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have questions for the applicant, which I'm happy to hold until after your feedback, but if you're asking for us to present those first.
If you want to hold, Amelia, you're more than welcome.
It sounded like you had some sort of framing questions, so maybe it makes sense for yours too.
Okay, I just have a couple of concerns that I'd like to raise, and if you happen to share those, you're more than welcome to let everybody know that you share them. If you want to raise what you have first, you are more than welcome. I leave up to you.
After you.
Okay. Does anybody other than Amelia have any comments or questions at this time before I ask mine?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask, actually, I'm not going to ask the applicant. I am going to tell the applicant some of my concerns, and there are some that were shared by Mr. Cavallini, actually. I don't love the idea of a building. Now, let me preface this by saying I share that this is a great building. Actually, I love the way this looks. I love the way this presents on the lot and with the neighborhood. I think it's beautiful. I think the architect did a great job. I love the idea of a green roof. I love the idea that this is going to be a no parking building within a quarter mile of a transit stop. I think there's a lot of very, very positive things that are going forward with this application. My concern, and really my primary, not quite only concern, but my primary concern is the unit mix, is the bedroom unit mix. And Mr. Cavallini had it 100% right. You've created a building that has 3 affordable units, but of the 15 units that you're proposing, 14 of them are going to be 1-bedroom units. We have been pushing developments for a long time to increase the size of family-sized housing. And if one of the things we want to do is increase Somerville's opportunity to be a place where people can raise a family, particularly in downtown areas and by transit stops, we need to increase the number of bedrooms that are available in units. And when I heard the applicant mention that they're going to be, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but basically very cozy 1-bedrooms, that raises a lot of concerns to me, because there's an opportunity for a brand new building where we're taking, I think this is a triple decker or a 2.5-story building, and each unit probably had more than 1 bedroom, is my guess. And saying we're going to take, okay, fine, there may have been 6 people living here now. Now we're going to make it 15.5 people. That to me doesn't seem like it's going to benefit the city as a whole. That seems to me like we're just trying to cram as many units as we can into a building without putting much thought into what we as a city actually need for a mix of housing stock. We've got a building a little further down the street that we've had representatives from this applicant's team, where we had something like 99 studio apartments with no parking, and that was fine for that particular building. But to have another building that really only allows 1 or 2 people to live in it, that doesn't allow a mix of single folks, roommates, and families to live in here, I think it's a mistake, and I think it's a miss. I think there's an opportunity for us to rethink the way this unit mix exists in this building to meet the needs of the city, because every application that we have seen has an overabundance of studio and 1-bedroom and 1-bedroom plus den. We all know that 1-bedroom plus den means you throw in a little roommate. So I'm not thrilled with the unit mix that we see here, and I'm hoping that we can encourage you to come back with us with a vision that will reflect some of the concerns that we've had both in Somervision and in internal discussions with the planning board. Other than that, if you don't touch the exterior of the building and just change the way the inside is laid out, I'd be a perfectly happy guy and move forward on this application. My concern is you're building 15 units and only one of them has 2 bedrooms. None of them have 3, and 1 bedroom is enough for maybe a couple. Even then it's going to be tight based on your own description. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. That's my concern as to the application. As to the staff memorandum and the conditions that are laid out, I just want to clarify a couple of things with Sarah. I think you're on the line.
Mr. Chairman, yes, through you, I'm here.
Okay. So the staff memorandum, I think, has a little bit of inconsistent language in it, and I just want to make sure that when the planning board is ready to make a vote on this application, that the conditions reflect what the intent of the board is. And in one part of the application, we make reference to, it relates to the parking issues. And it relates to the issue that parking will, residential and guest stickers will not be issued to residents of this building. But in the staff memo narrative, it says, except for the affordable units. But then in the conditions, it doesn't reflect that. It says no residential stickers will be given in conjunction with the regulations of the Traffic Commission. I'm trying to square the 2 of those and figure out where we go, because usually what the planning board's conditions have been as it relates to this particular parking waiver or restriction rather, is nobody gets them, but affordable units pursuant to other statutes and regulations have the opportunity to request an exemption. And I just want to make sure that the conditions that we're imposing in this are consistent with what we've done before and are in conjunction with and accordance with the various laws and regulations that govern this stuff.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, through you, thank you for the question. So to understand you correctly, so the conditions that were added to the memo as a recommendation are part of a standard list of conditions that we have in standard language. Is what I am hearing you say that you have some alternative language that you typically use for this, or is it concern between what was written in the report and is it saying 2 different things?
So the way I read the staff memorandum and the conditions that are included within it, they seem to be saying 2 different things. And what I want is for the recommendation and the conditions to reflect what the planning board has previously conditioned as it relates to this particular issue. I don't know if we've included express exemptions for the residents of affordable units, because I think folks with disabilities and seniors can also get exemptions from no parking as well. I just want to make sure that the conditions that we're putting into this application are consistent with what we've done before and reflect what the planning board's intent is.
Sure. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Chair, through you. Yes, so the way the conditions are written is the standard manner in which we would apply and put those conditions on a project such as this. I had intended the note about the ADUs simply to be actually a clarifying matter, but I apologize because it seems to have created more confusion than clarity, because a lot of times we do get questions from the public in particular that are worried that those who are in receipt of ADUs might need a parking space, and the way the condition is written it seems like they would be precluded from it. So I meant it to be just a clarifying point for the board, so I'm sorry if I added some confusion, but I also did, I wanted to also add for everybody's benefit too, that I took a look at the Traffic Commission's website, and so to your point before, when it comes to not receiving residential parking permits, one of their FAQs is, are there any exceptions, right, to not receiving residential parking permit? And I'll just read it directly, apologies. But yes, the new policy exempts future residents that may be choice limited, to your point, right? So including persons with disabilities, occupants of affordable dwelling units, and residents with extenuating circumstances. So my point was merely to just clarify what already existed. So I apologize if that created more confusion. And I can certainly, give you a little supplemental memo next time that's, states that fact, but your conditions are consistent.
And that was really my concern when it came to that, is I didn't want to impose greater limitations either than we have before or that we could do under the law.
Correct.
Those were my questions and concerns. That was my really one big concern. I will say I'm generally very supportive of this application. I think it's a great looking building. I wish we had more buildings that look like this coming before the planning board, but I would really, really welcome my colleagues to be able to weigh in as well. Sarah, I don't know if they're going to want you, but stick around if they do.
I'm right here and I can pop right back on camera anytime.
Amelia, did you want to add anything? Because you wanted me to go first.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with your points on the bedroom count. I had some additional questions for the applicant regarding parking and loading. As is frequently my concern with the number of units in this building and the odds of frequent sort of deliveries and drop-offs, is there a loading spot currently planned for the, I guess, the commercial Bow Street frontage of this building? I believe the existing condition is a public ADA parking space. So I'm curious what the plan is to either replace or relocate that if there is a drop-off area planned. If there is not, I have follow-up questions.
So Amelia, I do see that Philip Seamer, who I believe is on the applicant team, is raising his hand. I think there was an issue with Mr. Seamer's audio earlier. So I don't know if Mr. Seamer wants to be unmuted and either address your question or be unmuted and raise a different point, but I just want to make sure that we're not precluding somebody from the applicant team from making part of their application, or at least addressing your concern when it was might have been an audio issue.
Oh, thanks so much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. So yeah, Amelia, one of the reasons why this project was continued multiple times is we were working a lot with engineering to try and figure out the kind of best ways to deal with drop-off, loading, and delivery. And our initial plan was that we almost wanted to create kind of a full street level, paved street level with pavers on Bow Street Place that would allow for a mixed mode of transit. So primarily for pedestrians, but sometimes when there was loading, we would basically create a space for it with removable bollards, basically for the restaurant. What overruled that was the need to have the 12-foot sidewalks per the Somerville zoning. And when working with engineering, basically the size of this building and the size of the commercial space does not, per Somerville zoning, say that a specific loading area needs to be provided. So we created the sidewalk. In terms of what's happening in the front of the building, that currently I believe is an access or a handicap parking space. So we do not have a dedicated loading zone at the moment, but we're certainly, we could work with GM2 to perhaps figure out someplace in the front of the building. But that's where we're at right now.
Thank you. And then just to clarify what's happening on Bow Street Place, currently there is not functionally a sidewalk on Bow Street Place. Am I right to understand that the condition will go from building to sort of sidewalk urban realm to a two-lane, to a street that is wide enough for two-way traffic? there will not be a parking lane effectively as there currently is in practice.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. The dimensions between the two properties are like perfect for the Somerville streetscape, where you have the 12-foot wide sidewalks and then two-way traffic down Bow Street Place.
I don't yet have a proposed resolution here, but I would love if you could give some more thought to a loading solution. And I'm not talking about a move in, move out loading solution. I see where you've accounted for truck access in and out of Bow Street Place. But with the additional density that'll be coming here and the frequency of, Amazon and UPS and delivery food drivers, to avoid them effectively needing to double park in the bike lane on Bow Street coming around a corner. So if you could give some more thought to whether there is a traffic coordination solution about a loading zone or a signage approach, would love to hear having a plan for that.
Yes, yeah, we'll work internally and then, our next meeting, make sure that that's covered and addressed.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, through you, make a quick point. I would advise the applicant that they will need to work with the mobility division with, to work through the questions that Ms. Aboff brought up. Rather than doing it independently, they will have to work with the mobility division on that to make sure that what they propose is okay with them. So it won't need to be just a singular focus in nature. And if I could add one more thing before it comes up. I did hear in the public comment portion that a couple of commenters mentioned that it was recommended as a condition, or that there was a condition that there be a deed restriction placed on these units to prevent parking on Bow Street Place, which is a private street.
I was going to raise this if you didn't.
Good. And I just wanted to clarify that the comment there is just in the discussion section. And that is not a condition that staff has recommended or added, because we cannot require someone to put a deed restriction on their property. They have to offer it up. And that is precisely what that component of the report was stating, is that that is something that the applicant has offered to do. And so then I will leave the rest of that discussion about that piece up to the rest of you, but I did want to highlight that for everyone.
I appreciate that, Sarah. That was actually something that if you hadn't raised it, I was going to ask the question. Because Bow Street Place, as I understand it, is a private way, it's outside of the planning board's jurisdiction to be able to condition use on that private way. But it is reflected in the staff memorandum that the applicant has agreed that they will place a deed restriction. And I just want to clarify that with the applicant and the applicant team to make sure that what's reflected in the staff memorandum is accurate and what you intend to do as it relates to Bow Street Place.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, through you, Ms. Vigorito, I believe, is unmuted, and I have unmuted Mr. Sassoon as well, because I had exchanged an email with him clarifying this earlier, so I didn't know if you wanted to perhaps comment as well. So they're all set to speak if you would like.
Mr. Chairman and members of the planning board, we have had this discussion several times, that deed restriction, it was raised at the second neighborhood meeting, and, as a team, we still stand by it. The deed restriction will happen.
Thank you very much, Attorney Vigorito. Even though the planning board can't include that as a condition because it's outside of our authority to do so, I would like it reflected expressly in the planning board's vote when we describe the project and what the considerations of the planning board took were that this was an offer by the applicant that we expect to be included, although the planning board can't condition, because I think it's important for that to be incorporated within the official record of this vote.
Mr. Chair, through you, this is Sarah White. Yes, understood. We'll make sure that that gets reflected.
Aaron or Debbie, did you have any questions of staff or the applicant, or concerns that you had on this application? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually, on the bedroom count, I might be maybe an outlier on the board here, or a partial outlier. I appreciate that, you know, it's a mix, it's a lot of one bedrooms and studios. And I think the conceit here is if you have one bedrooms and studios, if they're sufficiently sort of reasonably priced, right? Then the math is that you sort of basically, sorry, my cat is really wanting to join the meeting. You can basically say that people that would normally sort of split a 3-bedroom that would be ideal for a family would then take these units if they're sufficiently, you know, reasonably priced, we'll say. And as, you know, a couple living in a 1-bedroom that has had the lucky ability to be able to stay in Somerville because of reasonably priced 1-bedrooms, I can see where that would sort of play a role. And if memory serves, I believe the MR5 district and some of these high-rise districts have been pointed out as places where smaller bedroom count might make more sense to allow for larger bedroom counts in other areas, and basically make it such that, you know, people that would again normally split these 3-bedroom units that would be in other areas and be more, I guess, we think of as more family units would then no longer be split by, like, you know, a couple roommates. So I guess my question here is for the applicant, which is, you know, really, I was wondering if you can speak to the sort of or not the capital A affordability of these units, but, you know, you're proposing one bedrooms and studios where Somerville does really need 3-bedroom units, right? And if you're proposing 1-bedroom and studio units that are, you know, pretty pricey, that doesn't meet this sort of rationale that the 1-bedroom and studio increased capacity will free up those 3-bedroom units that would otherwise be rented by roommates. So I was really kind of wondering what that was. Yeah, the applicant's comments on that. And sorry, that was a little rambly.
I'm happy to address that.
Attorney Vigorito, I think Alon wants to answer to it, but I just want to clarify. There are no studios, just 1 beds, and then the 1 2-bed. So it's 14. I just wanted to make sure there was no confusion. But I think Alon Sassoon wants to speak to more of your question.
So, good evening to the board and chairman. Yeah, I would like to address that because we are building quite a bit in Union Square and Somerville, and we are doing a lot of larger units. So for example, right behind this up the street at 9-11 Aldersea, those are 11 4-bedroom units. So they're very large family units right up the street. So, you know, and there's one affordable unit in there as well because it was a very old project. So, and we did 261, 265 Washington Street. There's 9 units over there, also in Union Square, and those are 3- and 4-bedroom units. So, and just to address the point about families, so out of all those units over there, there is, I believe there's 1 child in the building with a single mother. So it's all roommates, and, you know, and we don't market them, I mean, that way. I mean, we just, you know, but it's 1 single mother with a child, and then it's all roommates in all the 3- and 4-bedroom units over there. So I don't see many families coming, even when we build the larger ones in the buildings, but when we build them like up on Aldersea Street in the, you know, more of the home style look, then that's where you'll get more of the families. That's what I've seen anyway. So, you know, in this building, it's very tough today to get the math to work, especially now you got these 6, 7, 8% interest rates, you know, with banks to build these. You know, you have to have, and you know, more units. You know, if I could build more 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms like we've done, And we've also done, like Mr. Chairman said, the building with all the studios as well. But we try to mix it up. We just finished 300 Somerville Lab, the church there, and there's a few 3-bedroom units in there. Those are all 2s and 3s. There's no studios and no ones in there. That's the 10 units, which was the old church at 300 Somerville Ave. Those are all 2s and 3 bedrooms. So, you know, it's going to vary. But for me to get the math to work on this, it had to be more units, especially in today's economy with the high interest rates and the high cost of construction. So it made it very complicated. And that's why we did that on this building. And I would just like to address one of the gentlemen that came on to speak about 55 Bow Street. We don't own that building, but we do have it under agreement. And I just to correct him, and the plan is to do 100% affordable housing there, right next to this building, the Stanhope Framers. Mr. David Murphy owns that building, but so our plan is to do 100% affordable housing there, and we're going to build parking in the rear of that building for the neighbors on Bow Street Place. And that was the written proposal that I gave to the neighbors there, is to give every one of those houses on Bow Street Place a parking spot in the rear of the 100% affordable housing building next door. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure, if I might respond to that really quickly. I don't think you really answered my first question, which is, you know, again, the conceit here is that 1 bedrooms, and there are 2 studios on the first floor, if I'm reading the plans correctly. So the sort of lower bedroom counts here, the conceit is that, you know, the roommates would otherwise be splitting the 3 bedrooms would, you know, sort of take these. But you didn't really address the reasonably priced question, right? Which is, I think, one of the key things, at least for me. If you're going to say, you know, smaller bedroom counts here so that single people can afford to live there and not have to share these 3 and 4 bedroom units.
I'm not sure what you mean by reasonably priced though. I mean, that just depends on perspective. I only charge what the rents of whatever, and a lot of the things we do are for sale too, but this is a rental building, and whatever the market dictates as far as a 1 bedroom is what we will charge. And of course we have to do the affordable units according to whatever that dictates. So I don't really set the prices. It's the market that sets the prices.
Ms. Gino, this is Attorney Vigorito. I mean, generally, you know, it's so hard for us to figure out what the market's going to be once this building is finally built, you know, you know, the construction time and so forth. And, you know, granted, these wouldn't be for sale, so we're not dealing with, you know, the interest rates are rising, but, you know, rents have gone up too because of, you know, the interest rates going up. But, you know, my general practice is that they would be the fair market, you know, rentals at that time. I mean, you know, for some reason, I don't want to misspeak for the developer, you know, if you have empty units and you say, geez, I'd like to rent these if I can get, you know, they do reduce rents, you know, rental amounts then, but it's just such an unforeseeable. I mean, they'll be fair market, you know, rentals, and of course there'll be the 3 affordable units as well.
Yep. Yeah. I was really looking for, you know, if you had any strategies or not.
You want a number? Is that what you want? Like for a 1 bedroom?
I know you can't give me a number right now because you haven't gone through construction, but this was really more trying to get some idea about your approach. So I think I got that here, which was, you know, fair market, get what you can.
We'd never gouge. I mean, it's whatever fair market is, and you know, I mean, however we can help as well. So we would never overcharge anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's the sort of expected response. I'm not really moved one way or another.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure how to respond to that.
You know, this is really like, again, just trying to get your take on it. I need to think through it a little bit more as well before I can, you know, have any dialogue back and forth that's coherent.
Yeah, I mean, we try to mix it up. I like building bigger units myself. Like, feel free to take a gander up to Aldersea and see those are all 4 bedrooms and very large units. And so, I mean, we like to do larger units, but sometimes to get it to work, and especially in today's economic world, this was the way to do it. I mean, interest rates are doubled than what they were a couple of years ago. It makes it very hard to build and to keep something. So
I understand that. I have a few other very, very short questions, but I'd like to cede back to my fellow board members. I'd really love to hear what they have to say.
I will just respond real quickly to Erin. Your questions, I think, are outside of kind of what the planning board can condition or really consider. However, I will say the intent behind your questions are why I raised the concerns that I did. Is I can't, a little bit of, Blanche Dubois here. I can't rely on the kindness of the developer to price their fair market units to something that might incentivize people who are renting in a 3-bedroom to move to their 1-bedroom. What we can do is ask the applicant to come back with a potential redesign to increase their count on a couple of these units, even if it's 1 or 2 of them, because I fully anticipate with a 15 unit building or a building of this size that they're not going to be able to come back and say, yeah, we can absolutely make it work with all 3 bedrooms, right? Because there's going to be some mix that's probably going to have to work into their calculation on how they can actually make this project work. But I get exactly where you're coming from, and I think you're giving people a lot more credit they deserve, not this particular applicant. I'm not putting any aspersions on this particular applicant. I'm saying, people in general who are trying to, make a development. I'm not one to put faith into hope where I can't control it to a degree to direct what our incentives and policy should be. But I get where you're coming from, and I appreciate those questions. Those are the answers I was actually expecting out of your questions, which is why I would still like to encourage the applicant to come back with a revised unit count the next time they come to the planning board, so we can have an option of what the alternative is. And if the alternative is we absolutely cannot do it, I'm going to challenge that, because that's always what people say when I say give me an alternative and see what you can do. But I really do want you to come back. You've heard it from me, you've heard it from Amelia, you've heard it from members of the public, that we really do want to see, and I respect, and I do want to, thank you, Alon, for giving some context to some of the other projects that you've got in the area. If you're incentivized to do something that's, a totally affordable unit next door to that, that's great. I can't take that into consideration when I look at this particular project. We have to look at things, unfortunately, in a little bit of a vacuum when it comes to a planning board application. But I do respect your comments and context when it comes to other things that you're doing. But I do want to see a revised plan or an alternate plan to increase at least some of the bedroom counts on this, because I'm not the only person that's raising this concern. We've had it from another member of the board and from members of the public. So I would ask for the next time we meet in a few weeks that we see an alternative here, that if you come back and say I can meet some of these issues, I'd be happy to move forward on this project, but right now I'm a little bit concerned. I do see Amelia's hand raised, and I would like to recognize her again, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to take back my earlier feedback on this point. Actually, I tend to agree with Erin's point about the importance of smaller units eventually giving way to more availability of larger units for families. I think that is conceptually correct. I know that we don't have the information necessary to sort of feel confident that the affordability piece fits into this question, but I did take the opportunity to refresh myself on the actual criteria here, since Mr. Cavallini had called out Summer Vision and I was the planning board's representative to that process. And while Summer Vision does call out a need for more 2 and 3 bedroom units, it also suggests that a task would be to create a standard for that in the zoning ordinance, which is not something that we or the city have yet done. And in referring back to the zoning ordinance, actually, MR5 has 2 types of buildings in it: apartment buildings and general buildings. What's being proposed here is a general building with a household living primary use. And the directive in the zoning is to create dwelling unit type sizes and bedroom counts ideal for smaller households in general buildings. So I actually, as much as I might agree in concept with you and Erin, I think this applicant has adhered specifically to our direction for this zoning district and building type.
Thank you, Amelia, for that comment and context. I don't know if you have anything further. I know Erin did say that she had additional comments or questions after you and I and Debbie made our points. So I'd invite Erin, if you have nothing else that you wanted to address. Erin, if you had some additional things that you wanted to ask as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Amelia, for going back to the zoning. That was my recollection on the general buildings as well, but I didn't have the verbiage in front of me. In general, anything developers can do to keep the costs down and make units affordable. I know we can't condition it because it's not, you know, the mandate of the 3 affordable units, but I'll just state that, you know, the community would appreciate the H out of it, you know. My other 2 questions are actually one around the landscape. So on your preferred rendering, which is in the screen right now, over the commercial space, you show hanging planters off of the first floor parapet. And I didn't see those in the landscape plan. So I'm wondering if that's just, you know, to make the renderings look nice, or if you're actually intending on putting those hanging vines over that first floor commercial space. And then second question was just confirming if the mailers got sent out to the near abutters, based on one of the public comments that some of the Bow Street Place people weren't aware of the meeting today, which given the requirement to send out the public notices seems a little surprising.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, through you, this is Sarah White. Again, yes, the legal notices were sent out to the abutters. I think one of the challenges is that this was continued several times. So, you know, the notices don't get sent out again after continuances. So, yeah.
This is Philip Sema from Balance Architects. Per the planting on the brick corbels, none of it's being used to count towards the green score. So I think perhaps that's why it's not in the landscape plans, but certainly our intent. And I think what we can do for the next meeting is just highlight that on a landscape plan kind of specific to that first floor and make sure that it's legitimate, because yeah, it looks really nice in the rendering, but we want to make sure that it's viable and yeah, can be real.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I also appreciate you showing the telephone poles in your rendering. A lot of people will take those out. It makes buildings look a lot nicer than they will be after they're built.
To the extent that you can in the next, oh, I'm sorry, Erin, were you through?
That was me confirming that I was all set. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I would like to see, for the purpose of what we can do to get there, because I think the concern exists because the planning board can condition, and require and request certain things of applicants. I would like to see where we can go with some of these unit mixes. It's something that has been raised. And I don't know if we can add one more or what, but I really would like to, for the next time we meet, have an alternative plan to at least add one more multi-bedroom unit if that's possible. Because I think if you come to the board and say, we've kind of seen the concern you have, and the neighborhood has had based on the public testimony that we received. I'd be happy to vote for it right then and there, but right now I'm still a little bit concerned based on some of what I've heard and some of what I've seen. So I'm wondering if there's anybody else on the board that has any questions or comments of members of the staff or of the applicant at this time. Okay. Seeing none, I want to thank the applicant for the presentation and for the kind of dialogue that we've had this evening. And I would like, do you think that you will be ready to be back with us on the 2nd, which is 2 weeks from tonight? We'll also have a joint hearing that evening, so keep that in mind.
Mr. Chair, we would like to, be on the February 2nd meeting. Phil Seymour, our architect, usually works very diligent and, we're writing down all of your comments and concerns. So, if something arose, we would let, planning know, but I definitely think the 2nd will work for us.
Okay, what I'd like to do between now and then is leave written comment open for anybody that might not have been able to attend this evening based on the fact that this has been continued a number of times. So I'd like to leave written comment open until noon on Friday the 27th and move to continue this application and discussion of it to the February 2nd, 2023 meeting with the planning board. If nobody's got any further comments or questions, I'd like to make that motion. Seconded by
Mr. Chairman,
yeah.
I think Sarah waited to say something.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Through you, if I could, I would like the applicant to be cognizant that I would need their updated solutions and their fully updated plans and everything no later than honestly Monday or Tuesday of next week in order to analyze it and provide an update to the board for the end of next week for the following week's meeting. And they will have to work with the mobility department on this. So I just want to make both the board and the applicant cognizant of that. So they have a very short timeline in which to get this ready. So.
You still want until the 2nd, or would you like?
I'm hearing from the team that they would still like the 2nd. I think our architect's got some good ideas in his head, and GM2 will definitely. We've got to call into them for tomorrow.
Okay. In that case, the chair moves to continue this agenda item to the 2nd of February, and leaving the written comment open until the 27th at noon. Seconded by Amelia. Chair votes aye.
Amelia votes aye.
Karen votes aye.
Debbie votes aye.
Thank you all very much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. I would like to put us in recess for about 3 minutes, just for a quick bathroom break. We'll reconvene. So let's reconvene at 7:30. Planning board is in recess. Thank you. Okay, we have our full members. Riza, can I ask you to put us back on the record, please?
This is Rice speaking. You're on the record.
Okay, great. So we have one other item on our agenda. It's the rules and regs of the planning board. And so this is part of other business. So this is an internal discussion by the planning board. This is something that's been going back and forth between us and staff and members of the administration and back and forth. So we've got a document that was sent to us a few days ago, and I think it looks pretty good. I don't know if anybody has any further comments or questions. I have one, but I will leave it to the rest of you to make any comments first. Okay. My one comment on this is going to go to my cheat sheet here.
I think this is what Raisa means when she says your audio is cutting out. You just got much quieter than you were previously.
Did I? I'm sorry, is this better?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so my request is on item page 5 of the document. It is 4B sub 1 sub B. The proposal is accepted by a majority vote of the planning board. No items of business will be taken up after 10 p.m. My proposed revision on that is to amend 10 p.m. and make it 9 p.m. And the reason for that is oftentimes is the application that we just had, brand new, that wasn't super complicated. It was a 15-unit building. Took about an hour of discussion. If we open an agenda item at 10 o'clock or 9:59, we could be going till 11:30. And that to me is untenable for both members of the planning board and members of the public. We've all been to those meetings where they stretch until 11 o'clock at night and nobody's paying attention. The public is tuned out. We're irritated because we have had our meeting start at 6 o'clock. So it will be my proposed revision to make this a 9 o'clock stop. But if for whatever reason we decide to go longer, the right still exists for the planning board to vote in a majority to extend it. If we've got one 10-minute item afterwards that we want to address. I think this lends to making inefficient meetings that kind of discourage public participation, as well as our collective sanity. Meetings that run until 9 o'clock give us 3 hours of time. Meetings that run until that start at 9 o'clock and run till 10 o'clock give us plenty of time. So that would be my one proposed revision to the rules and regs. And because it gives us the opportunity to extend that time as we need and as we might think is appropriate on a case-by-case basis, I'm concerned that we're teeing ourselves up for a bunch of 11 o'clock nights, and that to me is not a reasonable use of time. Yes.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, that's saying we won't start any new cases after that hour, we're still going to continue discussion beyond that hour if it's from something that's opened earlier, right? Okay.
Yes, yeah, if we have 6 cases on our agenda, which I believe is what the draft regulations say, if that 6th case is going to be open at 9:20 p.m. after we've concluded discussion on item 5. We won't take that agenda item up. It's just taking too long, and nobody will get much beneficial use out of starting an item at 9:20 at night. Unless we decide otherwise. It's a piece of extra business or something. Does anybody have any concern on changing that item? Yes, Aaron.
I guess I would just say I don't have concerns with that, mainly because we can choose to take up an agenda item by majority vote. So if it makes sense to the majority of the board to take up an agenda item, then we can take up an agenda item.
Great. There was one other item that I wanted clarification on. I don't know exactly where it was. This is because we start our meetings at 6 o'clock. A lot of other boards start them at 6:30, like the city council does, or 7 o'clock, like the community preservation committee did. So because we're generally starting earlier than many of the boards and bodies, I don't have a concern saying 9 o'clock is a reasonable time to not take up any new items. I don't, maybe it's written out in the letter set, the words. Risa, do you happen to recall? Here we go. No, it's item 4A1B. And it says no more than 6 public hearings shall be scheduled per meeting. I read that proposed item on our rules and regs as including those hearings and agenda items that were part of joint hearings that were previously heard and opened in a joint hearing with the Land Use Committee. So my concern is that we'll have.
This is Rice speaking.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you did cut off briefly there.
Okay. I'll scale back. It's item 4A1B. No more than 6 public hearings shall be scheduled per meeting. And my concern is, without some clarification on what we mean by that, we will have 6 full items of the planning board. So, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 on top of any items that we previously heard and were party to deliberation on through a joint hearing with the Land Use Committee, which means we could have 6 full hearings of our own on top of 10 agenda items that were put onto a joint hearing, either by through the various different ways that land use joint hearings are initiated. So I think that would be a heck of a lot to accomplish in one evening, because we've certainly seen joint hearings that are dealing with 10 different zoning proposals. Some of them are controversial, some are not. I think that's a lot to have on our plate for one meeting. So what I'd like to do is add some clarity to that particular provision of the rules and regs, saying no more than 6 public hearings, including those agenda items that were subject to a joint hearing between the planning board and another body, so that we don't overburden ourselves and the public that are there to try to listen to us, because how we take certain agenda items, people could be staying until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whatever it might be, and really holding people to a computer where they don't have to be, because I think it makes it kind of an untenable meeting. I don't know how often that'll happen. I just want to put some clarity into it on where I think the board might want to go with scheduling purposes. I don't know if anybody wants to have any discussion on that. Okay. It looks like the answer is no. Does anybody want to raise any additional suggestions or revisions to the rules and regs as they were emailed to us with certain revisions? Okay, seeing none, what I'd like to do is move to adopt with the proposed revisions the rules and regulations of the planning board that was sent to us and that was discussed this evening. Seconded by Amelia. Roll call vote. The chair votes aye.
Amelia votes aye.
Erin votes aye.
Debbie votes aye.
Wonderful. We have rules and regs. I believe that's the last item on our agenda. And with no further items to discuss this evening at 7:42. Yo, Amelia, yes.
Sure.
Did I miss something?
Apologies. No, I had another item of business I'd like to raise if appropriate.
Okay.
So stemming from our conversation earlier, Summer Vision does have this suggested task that someone should take on, that we establish design guidelines for family housing and zoning requirements for minimum percentages of family of 2 and 3 bedroom units in developments. And I wonder if we could request an update from staff on whether that is an initiative currently going on at OSPCD and or whether it's something that we could take up as a board. Because I think that tonight's hearing was a good exercise and something that we could handle better in an earlier step of the process.
Okay. I know at least 2 members of staff are present. So if that was it seems like it was a question directed to either of you.
This is Rice speaking. My apologies, Vice Chair, please finish.
My apologies, I didn't mean to suggest that you had that answer ready to go. I intended it as an item for a future update, but if you have the answer, I'm happy to hear it.
This is Rice speaking. I do not have that answer for you right now. However, I will look into it and have that answer for you at the next hearing. Next meeting.
Thank you. If anybody else have anything that would like to add for the good of the meeting? Seeing none, at 7:44, the chair moves to adjourn. Seconded by Amelia. Roll call vote. The chair votes aye.
Amelia votes aye.
Erin votes aye.
Debbie votes aye.
Thank you all very much. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Go enjoy dinner.
Good night.
Thank you.